Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Before we get started with the actual baseball and softball rules training, I was asked to talk a little bit about your roles as Little League coaches and managers. Thank you, Lisa. I'm Jim Kemp, by the way, the district administrator. We have with us DJ Rose. He's our UIC. Don Mason, who is past district administrator and past UIC and has been a softball umpire at the Little League World Series. DJ is currently this year going to be an umpire at the Little League World Series. These guys know their stuff, so they're going to do a good job training you tonight. But I want to just say a little bit about your roles before we get rolling on the rules training. So year to year player retention is critical to the health of leagues. Thank you for agreeing to be a coach. Being selected a coach or manager is an honor and a privilege for you guys. And league presidents and board of directors are putting a tremendous amount of trust in you. You personally have a greater impact on the child's experience in your league than anybody else. The coaches do. So this is why Little League offers Diamond Leader training, which all managers and coaches should take. It's mandatory if you're going to be a manager or coach in the tournament, in Little League tournament, but it would be very valuable for all coaches and managers to take. I am going to send out this document that you see on the screen or that I'm holding up to all of you after the meeting. And it has a link on there to the Diamond Leader training. Diamond Leader training focuses on ensuring that the children have a positive, well-rounded experience on and off the field. It's free to you through the Little League University website, and it provides coaches with an understanding of the impact that mental, social, and emotional well-being has on youth sports. So if you haven't taken that yet, you should. I've also included on this paper for your benefit a new requirement for Little League this year that all volunteers are required to take. Hopefully your presidents have already talked to you about that. And that's USA Baseball Abuse Awareness Training. Board members and presidents, I've asked that they all take the base training. The USA has a couple different options, but coaches can take A certification training or parent certification training. It's just up to whatever your league wants you to take. But I have a link to that on here, as well as some other links to Positive Coaching Alliance and USA Baseball courses. So those are things that can help you be better coaches for your season. But specifically what I was asked to cover was behavior. And part of the trust that league presidents and boards put in coaches is that they have the ability to control their emotions and conduct themselves appropriately. So your behavior is really important. Coaches must be aware that they have tremendous influence for inciting both good and bad behavior and sportsmanship in players and spectators. Remember that most adults and many children in our communities will have cellular phones capable of recording and sharing video. So if you step out of line, someone will likely be recording it and will share it on social media. So don't be the person who embarrasses themselves, their families, their league, their community, District 6 and Little League in general. Then I was also asked to speak about interaction with umpires. Our leagues do not have the luxury of utilizing professional umpires, even if the umpires get paid. So please treat umpires with the utmost respect, especially if you do not agree with them. Judgment calls like ball, strike, safe, out must never be argued under any circumstance. If there are questions about an umpire's application of a rule, the team's manager may respectfully ask for clarification. The league should have a protest board set up to deal with such disagreements. So if there's an implementation of a rule question, you should be able to go to those protest boards. And if there's any other issues with the umpires, Little League Rule 9 deals with the authority of umpires in regard to coach behavior. So the last thing I want to mention before we get into the rules training is that you guys always need to focus that at this level, the primary goal of playing baseball and softball is to have fun. It's not to win. Winning is fun. Nobody's going to deny that. But I've known plenty of coaches that have championship teams that they don't have very good retention the next year because the kids didn't have fun. And I know other programs that have kids that were on teams that had losing seasons, and they all came back because they had a blast. So just remember that how you coach your team is going to have more of an impact on whether the kids come back next year or not than anything else. All right, so DJ and Don are going to take off. I'm going to switch over to the presentation for the folks online. All right, so I think Don, all right, DJ is going to speak first, I think.
Hello, online. So we're going to dive right into it. If you have questions at any point, now is a really good time to ask those questions. If you have a question online, just either raise your hand or just start talking and I'll listen, and I'll try and remember to repeat it for the people that are in the room. But we left the 2023 significant rule changes in there. This first slide is specifically for baseball. Just because there were a lot of decent like game administration changes with the armbands. Jewelry can now be worn in the player's hair. Hard items can be worn in players' hair. Effective last year, coaches could warm up players in between innings. That used to be a Little League rule that you could not. Last year, we added the run rule, the 8-run rule after 5. So it was 15 after 3, 10 after 4, and last year now it's 8 after 5. There's intentional walk rule modifications and additions. We'll dive into those a little bit. Managers and coaches in the dugout used to be dependent upon roster size. Now you can have 3 regardless, whether you have 10 or 14 players. None of that matters. And then some changes to our special pinch runner and courtesy runner, which we'll cover when it comes to, and that's specifically the tournament playing rules, but we'll cover some of the nuances. Is anybody here or online still using play 9, bat 9, or is everybody switched to continuous batting order? Don't know yet? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so just keep in mind that if you play 9, bat 9 in the regular season, that's totally fine. Just know that once you get to the international tournament level, district tournament and beyond, it's automatic continuous batting order. It's not an option. So just throwing that out there. Yes, there's a question.
Are leagues allowed to switch depending on
Never mind. 86 the question. Okay. 2024 significant rule changes. I'm pretty sure both of these are the exact same oh gosh, there we go, in baseball. But during the regular season, well, we talked about that these changes are specifically for the definition of an at-bat. If y'all remember last year, we changed the definition of an at-bat. You have to complete your time running the bases or be called out. There was a whole lot of different parameters, and it created loopholes. The rule wasn't written very well. So the rule has been modified slightly. And so basically during the regular season, you have to run the bases if it's your first at bat. You can't, or last year you could kind of circumvent the rule. This year it's a no. During the regular season, you have to run the bases, and in tournament play though, you do not have to run the bases if it's your first at bat, but you still need to meet the mandatory play. And what we're talking about with mandatory play is a time at bat for the offense means that they go up to bat with a 0-0 count, and they complete the entire time at bat, whether that is getting on base and running the bases, being thrown out on the bases, striking out, whatever the case may be. What was happening is you would go on base, you'd get to first base, and you would get ran for. and you can't get ran for and it count as your mandatory play. In order for mandatory play, you have to complete basically an entire time on offense. Is probably a better way to put that. So again, in the regular season, they have to complete that entire time on offense during the first at bat. That loophole has now been closed. In the tournament play, they do not, but it's still the manager's responsibility to make sure they meet mandatory play during the tournament.
So just clarification, DJ, if they are taking, he gets on base in the first inning and he's removed, sometime in that game, he or she has to bat again and complete that full cycle, correct?
In the tournament play, yes. I'm talking your local league, city tournament, city regular season. Yeah. When we say the term tournament, we're talking district tournament and beyond, district, state, regional, World Series. Softball changes. This is big stuff. I'll let Don kind of talk about it because I don't know anything about softball at all. Just touch the screen there. Oh, you can switch to the next one. Sorry. But this aligns us with pretty much the rest of like softball codes nationwide. Swipe left on your screen. There you go.
We just have one microphone, so DJ and I are having to switch back and forth. But for 2024, the significant rule changes for softball is leaping has always been disallowed in Little League. And that leaping is no longer a penalty. It no longer exists in Little League or in high school, I believe, or in college. It's basically been done away with. Okay, so what we used to refer to as an illegal pitch because the pitcher was leaping is no longer in play. That's basically what Rule 200, 801, and 805 are referring to. So the only illegal pitch you have is now, well, not the only illegal pitch, but crow hopping you still cannot do in softball. But the leap is no longer an infraction. For senior division, they now have, if your program's offering the senior division, you now have the DP flex. This replaces the designated hitter with the designated player in flex, and basically is to provide more opportunities for players in the senior league softball. The designated player is the player who is initially on the lineup card in the team's batting order, but they are not in the defensive lineup. It's kind of like a designated hitter, if you think of it that way. Flex is the player who initially is listed in the 10th spot. They may play any defensive position and may enter the game on offense only in place of the DP batting position. And I lost it again. Maybe I should swipe up here. I don't usually do this. There we go. Sorry, I'm an old guy. I'm technologically challenged here. Huh? Well, whatever happened to pen and paper, DJ? Oh, there it is. Maybe. Okay. 2024, DJ kind of mentioned that earlier. So I don't think we need to hit that again. We just wanted to make sure it was in the slide because it was specific to 2024. Okay, turn.
Yep. Slide, Jim. All right, pitching regulations here. Again, you'll notice at the top of like each slide, and we'll send this out to everybody afterwards, but at the top of each slide is like the general rule or regulation where you can find it in the book as well. But catcher to pitcher in baseball, so you cannot catch and then go to pitcher if you catch 4 or more innings in a day. And that means one single pitch in the fourth inning that you catch, you cannot pitch. A classic workaround would be to catch 3 complete innings, throw 20 pitches, and then go back to catcher. That is a classic workaround loophole, because you can throw 20 pitches or less in the same day and return to pitcher. Once you throw 21 or more, you cannot catch for the rest of the day. So that's a classic little loophole there. Yes. No, it is live. It is pitch like live pitches. The question was, do warm up pitches count? And the answer is no. If you're the starting pitcher or any pitcher and you haven't caught it all, you can throw up to 40 pitches in a game and go to the catcher position. So all that's there listed. This is in Regulation 6 for our pitch count and days of rest. Yeah, 41 is your threshold, so 40 or less. As long as he started the at bat at 40 or less. Yep. The question was in regards to threshold, the pitching threshold being 41 there. So pitch count, baseball only 6 to 8 year olds. And again, if you have a 10-year-old playing majors or a 9-year-old playing majors, this is about their age, not the division that they're playing. Okay. So a 6 to 8 year old has a maximum pitch count of 50 in a day. 9 to 10 year olds have 75, 11 to 12 year olds have 85, and 13 to 16 year olds all have 95. The threshold, when we talk about the threshold, is they can finish their batter provided they've started their batter before they reach that pitch count. So we'll say if Don is 12 years old and he is pitching and he's at pitch 83 and I'm the batter and I foul off 7 pitches, he can still finish my at bat. He just can't pitch to the next batter. He can't pitch to the next batter. So again, if he were to start at 83 and throw 7 pitches in that at bat, that's fine. It's not a hard stop at 85. It's a thresholded stop at 85, meaning he can complete the at bat and then he's got to come out. And that's anytime you see threshold in the rule book, that's what it's talking about. And the same goes for days of rest, which is the next point. If you're trying to get your pitcher at 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 days, or well, I guess 4 doesn't matter, but 0, 1, 2, or 3, the threshold still applies for all of those as well. So if you're trying to throw a pitcher and only have them do 2 days of rest, you can see the 2 days there is 36 to 50. So if they start a batter at 48, they can end hypothetically at 45 or whatever the case may be, as long as they started that batter. They could end at 55 rather, as long as they started that batter before 50. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's 51 takes you out. Yep. 51 is a new batter. Yep. So those thresholds are listed there. 0, 1, 0 is 0 to 21. And these are calendar days. So if I threw, it's 42 pitches, I would need 2 days of rest. That's tomorrow, which is Friday. Saturday is my second calendar day of rest. I am eligible to pitch on Sunday. So it's 2 calendar days, okay? Not 48 hours from right now. It's 2 complete calendar days. Softball, just so we don't have to pass it back and forth. Majors and below, if you pitch 7 or more innings in a day, you have to observe 1 calendar day of rest. Majors and below, 12 inning max per day. So if you can throw up to 12 in a day, that's fine. But if you throw more than 7, you have to do a day of rest. If you keep it below 7, you don't need rest. And then junior and senior, there are no pitching restrictions. Let me finish and then I'll ask for questions on pitching. You cannot pitch in 2 games for baseball. Exceptions for junior and senior league. So if you're doing a doubleheader, you can't pitch in both games. If you're majors and below, juniors and seniors, you can. And then a common Oh yeah, I skipped. I was getting ready to say that. Something that's not really thought about. I don't know why I skipped over that. You cannot pitch in 3 consecutive days. So you can't have somebody go out there and throw 15, 15, 15, 3 calendar days in a row. If you're going to throw somebody 2 days in a row, you might as well take them to their maximum, provided that they're like hitting the strike zone and stuff. But you cannot, at under any circumstances, throw the same pitcher 3 consecutive days. Days, not games. The resumption of games exception, that's the kind of one caveat to everything. If a pitcher throws, let's say I throw 85 pitches and I meet my maximum today. So as we can see, anything over 66 pitches requires 4 days of rest. So let's say I throw 85 pitches tonight, but it's raining and we get, or I throw 70 pitches or whatever the case may be tonight. It's raining. We don't reschedule tonight's game until a week from now. I can throw 85 more pitches in the same game because I've observed my calendar days of rest. So there is a small caveat there. The same pitcher can technically pitch more than the 85 in a game only if there's a calendar days of rest and the game were to get suspended. Questions on pitch count days of rest? So what are you saying? Like if I throw 70 tonight, but the game gets rescheduled for tomorrow, I am not eligible. Yes, absolutely. It's all about observing days of rest. I would then be short, even though I didn't meet my 85. I can't because I need my days of rest for throwing 70. So I would be eligible. What is today? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I would be eligible to pitch again on Tuesday. Any other questions on pitch count? Regulation 6. Okay. Bat specifications. Next slide, I think rule 1.1. Majors and below, you need the USA bat. It has to have the USA bat stamp. No other bats are permitted. Intermediate and above, so the 13 to 16-year-olds, they can use a USA bat or the BBCOR bat. Either of those are fine. And then softball, you need to have the BPF, the bat performance factor, I think is what it stands for, of 1.2 or less. 1.2 or less is what that needs to be. And those need to be clearly visible on the bat. Minors and majors, we don't have to dive into the specifics there, but 33, 2 5/8, 33 and 2 1/4, so on and so forth down the list there for the minors and majors. The only specialty is in senior league. They do have the drop 3, provision. So if your bat is 36 inches, it can't weigh less than 33 inches, which is pretty standard once you get into the older levels of baseball. Couple fun notes here regarding bats. Little League does not allow batting donuts. So the circular weighted object that goes on the barrel of the bat, they're not allowed. And neither is pine tar. At any level of Little League are batting donuts allowed or pine tar. That's a no. If you do have the traditional batting sleeve, that's okay. Like a weighted batting sleeve is okay. Don't ask me why. Don't know. But a donut is not allowed, but a sleeve is. Just throwing it out there. Questions on bats? No pine tar at all allowed in Little League Baseball at any level. The question was, no, pine tar on wooden bats. All right, Rule 111. This is kind of one of those newer, the play calling bans we had talked about just as a 2023 point of emphasis. As far as undershirts though, for baseball, the pitcher's undershirt needs to be of a solid color and it cannot be white or gray. Softball, the pitcher's undershirt just needs to be a solid color. And then play calling bans, those have kind of taken the baseball world by storm, the softball world by storm over the last 3 or 4 years. Play calling bans are allowed, but they have to be worn as intended, meaning you can't have a play calling band on your belt or on your calf or whatever the case may be. If you have a play calling armband, it has to be on your arm. It has to be on your glove arm. And a pitcher can wear a play calling band. It has to be on the glove arm. Okay. So again, no play calling bands other than intended is what the rule says, and that means on the arm. Okay, so if you're got one of those color-coded thingamadoops that you want to use, it's totally fine. Has to be on the arm. Question here. Yeah. If a pitcher wears one, it can't be white, gray, or optic yellow. Yep, they can be any other position can wear it, and it can be any color, but it just has to be worn as intended, is what the rule says. So we interpret that as on the arm. Next slide, Rule 2. In Rule 2, you'll just find the definition of terms. It's kind of like a glossary of the rule book. Some of the terms are important to know. Just a few of them here. A catch. What we're looking for in a catch, or what you should be looking for in a catch, is voluntary release. So the catch in the outfield, or whatever the case may be, you should be looking for the ball to be released from the glove voluntarily by the fielder, reaching in and essentially taking the ball out. Fair and foul, as what you would expect. I just bring it up because the line is fair. The bases are fair. Home plate isn't fair. All of that is fair territory. So if a ball were to rest on a line or hit a base or rest on home plate, those are all fair territory. If a ball bounces over a bag, as long as it gets some portion of the bag, it's a fair ball. So important to know there. A foul tip is the classic, the batter swings, nicks the ball, and the ball goes, as the rule book describes, sharp and direct to the catcher's mitt or hands. A foul tip is a live ball. Runners can advance at their own risk. If the catcher drops that ball, it would be a foul ball. So it's important to know there. It's a foul tip until it's not caught. Essentially, provided it goes sharp and direct to the catcher. An illegal pitch. There are no balks in Little League majors and below. There are just, I think, two illegal pitches, two different. Yeah, I think, yeah, there's just illegal pitches. Penalty for an illegal pitch is a ball. We'll get into penalties a little bit later. The infield fly rule. Everybody, keep in mind, it protects the offense. The whole purpose of its creation is to protect the offense, even though everybody thinks it's for the defense. But again, with runners on first and second, or first, second, and third, with less than 2 outs, and a fly ball is hit into the infield that can be caught by an infielder with ordinary effort. That's all we're looking for. Does that mean that a ball that's hit 15 feet into the outfield could still be an infield fly? Yes, absolutely. Because you could have a second baseman take a few steps backwards and still be able to catch that ball with ordinary effort. So again, first, second, and third, less than 2 outs, and it's a fly ball that can be caught with ordinary effort by an infielder. And again, the rule is there to protect the offense, because if that ball doesn't get dropped, now you're looking at a potential at least 1 out, probably a double play. So again, oh boy, I'm sorry. Yeah. So infield fly. Okay, so there's a couple layered questions here. So first is, how should it be called? The first way is just simply pointing into the air. Take your time on it. If you're coaching and it doesn't have to be a hustle, because it's the one rule that says even if it's not called, it's still put into effect. It can still be adjudicated after everything is said and done. But the appropriate way would be around the ball's apex of its height. You point at the sky and you just say infield fly. You're taught an infield fly batter is out. You're taught at umpire school and stuff like that, yes, if you think it could be close to the line, fair or foul, to say infield fly if fair, because if it falls foul, the batter's not out. We're not going to penalize the batter for hitting a foul ball. What was your question right here? The question was, infield fly, is it a live or a dead ball? And it's a live ball. Runners can advance at their own risk. I won't tell you what I would do if I was a manager of a little league team when it came to the infield fly, but just know that it is a live ball, and runners can do whatever you need them to do. 100%. Yeah. It's 100% umpire judgment. Is it a fly ball that can be caught with ordinary effort? No. I just need to think, can they get there ordinarily? Yep. Yeah. If the ball's caught, yes. Yep. If it's not caught, no.
But remember, if it's not caught, they don't have to move.
Correct. Because the batter's out.
So teach them to stay on their base if they hear infield fly, and no matter what happens, you stay here.
Yeah.
It would be the way to teach that.
Nope. If it's not caught, it's just like all we're trying to do is get the batter out of the scenario so that way the runners aren't screwed up on the bases essentially by do I run or not. Yeah, infield flies is all divisions. Correct. Yeah, batter is automatically out. It's part of the rule. It's no questions asked. If you're the offensive manager, you should want your batter to be out, because if not, like I said, you could be looking at a guaranteed, out, if not a double play. So.
Yeah, and just as DJ said, though, when you call it, you want to make sure infield fly, batter's out, batter's out. That way you stop that kid from running. You stop the defense from thinking he's still alive. If you make it loud and boisterous where the batter knows he's done and he's gone back to the dugout, you eliminate a lot of issues. If you just go infield fly and then the play keeps continuing, the kid drops the ball, then you got the defense trying to make a play on the batter that's already out. So as an umpire, you want to try to make sure everybody knows that batter's out.
Yeah, ultimately it's our job to let you know. It's not our job to be responsible, right? Yeah. Yeah. But as an umpire, if you've ever seen me umpire, it's probably the loudest I am on a baseball field with any call, foul, out, whatever. Like I'm probably the loudest on an infield fly because it's important. Yeah. A bunt cannot be an infield fly. That's a fair point. It has to be a swing. Yeah, a swing. Yeah, cannot bunt an infield fly, and that's why we talk about an infield fly. Interference is an act of the offense impeding or hindering the defense from making a play. We'll dive into it a little bit. There can be catcher's interference too, which is obviously interfering with the batter. Obstruction is an act of the defense interfering with the offense. So a lot of times everybody just kind of uses interference as the one word. They are separate. They do have different meanings. And then the last rule the last term is tag. On a tag, we're looking for firm and secure possession. So a catch is voluntary release. A tag, we're looking for the ball to be held firmly and securely in the glove or hand for us to be able to rule on that. Next slide, Jim. All right, rule 3, game preliminaries. So we talked a little bit about play 9, bat 9. I'm going to cover it. Play 9, bat 9, you have mandatory play for juniors and below. So little league minors, majors, and intermediate and juniors all have to follow mandatory play. Again, this is play 9, bat 9. So where you have a starting lineup and substitutes. To meet mandatory play, you have to enter the box with no count. You have to complete, as I have worded, an entire experience on offense. That's how I worded it to try and help it make sense. And then on defense, you have to play those 6 consecutive outs still. That's if you're doing play 9, bat 9. Yeah, so if you're running play 9, bat 9, and you have 15, that means you have 9 starters and 6 subs, and you got to get those 6 subs, 1 complete at bat in time on offense, and 6 consecutive defensive outs. Rule 309 is where we now talk about our managers warming up pitchers and how that is now legal. I believe that's a regular season only rule, though. I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure it's a regular season only. When you get to the tournament, you won't be allowed. If you're a international tournament coach, you will not be allowed to warm up your pitchers still. All right. Rule 4, 4.04 is where we talk about continuous batting order. It's exactly what it sounds like. Everybody on the roster plays. Everybody on the roster hits. The only mandatory play is the time at bat. There is no mandatory play on defense. In the spirit of Little League, I feel like everybody should get to play on defense, but you are not required to by the law of the rule book. The rule book, they just need to get their time at bat. There is no defensive mandatory play for continuous batting order. Rule 410 talks about our run rules. The home team has to bat unless they're the leader. If the home team has to bat unless they're winning, but it's 15 runs after 3, 10 runs after 4 innings, 8 runs after 5 innings. Important note, in the international tournament, the 8 run after 5 is not a thing. It is only 15 after 3, 10 after 4. Double headers. Minors can do 1 doubleheader in a week. Majors can do 2 doubleheaders in a week. There are no triple headers. And international or intermediate and above, you can utilize the designated or the doubleheader. Yes, I'm sorry. So for intermediate and above, the run rules are the same amount of runs, just 1 more inning. So 15 after 4, 10 after 5, 8 after 6. 15 after 4, 10 after 5. What's that? No, that's intermediate and up. So intermediate, juniors, and seniors. Yep. Yeah. No, the 7-inning games. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Softball, they can play 2 doubleheaders in a single week or a 7-day period for minors and majors. No triple headers for minors or majors, and then for for juniors and seniors in softball, you can play triple headers. Just a heads up. Rule 416 and 417, our rule book, this kind of throws people off a little bit. You have to have 9 and at least an acting manager or coach to play baseball or softball. You have to have at least 9. There is a local league option that you can start a game with 8. Most of the time people do like play with 8, but it technically has to be in your local league bylaws to be like considered an option. If you have 7 or less, though, you cannot play baseball. Okay. So again, 8 is technically okay. It has to be approved by your local league, but our rule books, it's straight up. You have to have 9. There is no parameter. A lot of people like to ask, okay, well, let's say our league lets us play with 8. What do we do with the 9th spot in the batting order? Our rule book does not provide a provision for that. So a lot of times like, well, the 9th spot is an automatic out or whatever the case may be. We don't have there's no provision in the rule book because technically you're supposed to play with 9 per our rule book. But Little League has that 8-player provision in there because they don't want 8 kids to show up to a field and not be able to play a baseball or softball game. So,
there is a rule in Little League that says if a player goes out injured, you can finish with 8, and that 9th batter is an out.
I can't hear him in here, so I don't know.
If the 9th player gets injured in the middle of the game. Yes.
I'll have to look it up. I don't want to answer to unless you know off the top of your head.
I know they do not have, because this was a big discussion at the regional lounge about non-automatic out for the player, having players less than 9.
Yeah.
That was a big discussion. They said that absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to run the risk of ending a Little League World Series on an automatic out.
Right. Exactly.
I think you just skip them is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, my guidance would be to skip if a player has to be removed from a game due to injury or something like that. Question here. I was on that game. Totally fine.
So I think it's one of those things that the board will decide.
Yep.
They stop the game.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's what happened. They actually
I was a third base umpire. I remember. Jim wants to add one other thing about doubleheaders. Coaches pitch and minors cannot have a doubleheader. But we do have one league that has a waiver to allow that. We can put John Majors to work. All right. Next slide is Rule 5, putting the ball in play. Just inning limits to be aware of. T-ball, it's 3 outs or all players have batted. Minors, it's 3 outs, all players have batted, or 5 runs in an inning. The local league, there is a local league option to suspend the 5-run rule for the 6th inning and any extra innings to make it a little bit more competitive. Yeah, so minors, I know there's probably not anybody for T-ball in here, probably. Minors, though, 3 outs, all players have batted, or 5-run max in an inning. Rule 6, 602, the foot in the box. So believe it or not, this is actually a local league option during the regular season. I just always encourage people to adopt this rule and follow the rule, because the moment you get to the district tournament, your players have to be aware of it, because it's literally warning, warning, strike. Basically, the rule is that you have to have 1 foot in the box on all cleanly caught pitches. It's easier to explain how many, like, what keeps you in the box versus all the times that you can leave the box. So 1 foot in the box on all cleanly caught pitches. If it's not a cleanly caught pitch, they can leave the box. Again, that's not a regular season rule. It's a tournament rule, but it is a local league option that I would encourage you to follow for our leagues. Uncaught third strike, first base not occupied with less than 2 outs. So again, at any time that there are 0 or 1 out and first base is not occupied by a runner, if the catcher does not catch the drop third strike, or the third strike rather, it is drop third and the batter can run to first base. This is also any runner situation with 2 outs. So no runners on first with less than 2 outs. You can have a runner on first if there are 2 outs. 2 outs no matter what you're running. No, that's majors and above. But drop third strike. You can't do drop third strike in minors, right? Yeah, majors and above. Majors and above for drop third strike. A lot of people like to ask, when are they not allowed to run anymore? Our rule book, again, this is where our rule book differs from some, is dead ball territory. I've been to most of our parks. Most of you guys, your parks are the front part of your gate to your dugout is dead ball territory. So hypothetically, if there was a drop third strike, your player could walk all the way back to your gate and then turn around and run to first base before they are automatically declared out. Okay. A lot of other rule sets, it's once they leave the dirt circle of the around home plate, if they leave that dirt circle, they're automatically out. I'm pretty sure that's the high school and college rule. We take you all the way to dead ball territory. So wherever your local league's ground rules for your fields suggest that dead ball territory is, that's how far that player can walk. Before. One thing I've learned over the last specifically like 5 years is I try not to do things that are outside the provisions of the rule book. So if the provision of the rule book says dead ball territory, that's what I'm going to give, because if a coach knows, because they went to DJ's class and Don's class and they know that it's dead ball territory, and I say, nah, he's out, he gave him up, and the coach says, no, it's dead ball territory, I want to protest this game now because I misapplied a playing rule, then I just rather, that's why I try to know the little nuances of our code. I don't umpire high school. I don't umpire college. I literally just umpire little league because I want to get it right and because I care. So yeah, it's a fun one. Illegal bats. I've never really seen this like happen live during a regular season anyway. I've seen it happen like twice in the tournament play, but illegal bat, the penalty is the batter's out. and your offense loses an adult base coach for the remainder of the game. So you can throw a kid out at first base if you want. Second infraction, if you have another illegal bat in the same game, the batter is out and the manager is ejected. And any further action, if you were to, for some reason, still just send the kid up there with an illegal bat, the batter would be out again, and the other manager would be ejected, which would mean that you would lose both base coaches because you have to have a coach in the dugout at all times. So keep that in mind. Intentional walks. This kind of changed a little bit. I just want to make sure everybody's on board here. How I'm describing this is every player gets one verbal, automatic, intentional walk a game. So what I mean is Don's a slugger. He's coming up. He's got 2 runners on. I want to walk him. I can say, hey, I want Don to take first base in 4 pitches, whatever the case may be. I can do that. Totally fine. No issues at all. Don gets first base. Don comes up a second time. I can still intentionally walk Don if I want to. I have to physically throw those pitches though. There's only one auto, like you see in the majors, give them 4. Like there's only one of those per batter per game. So yeah.
If you do that, if I walk Brett without throwing the pitches, the 4 pitches count on this.
Yes, absolutely. So anytime that you're auto walking, 4 pitches go to the pitch count. And my example here is the remainder of balls in the at bat, because technically if there's a 2-1 count and you're like, all right, we don't want to mess with this anymore, give them 2. That's fine. You can choose to intentionally walk them with those 2 pitches go on your pitch count. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, so technically if Don were to go up to bat 4 times in the game, he could be intentionally walked all 4 times. But he has to get at least 12 pitches, physical pitches, and then the other 4 can be the auto. Does that make sense? Cool. I explained it differently last year. Yeah, just like the old school intentional walk. Yep, the catcher can stand up. Hey, we're going to walk this guy, throw it to me over here, and we're good to go. And that's once per game per batter. So if you have 10 sluggers, they can all be auto walked 1 time. But the next time through or any subsequent time, they can't be intentionally or auto walked anymore. Batting out of turn, this could get weedy. We can get weedy later if we want to, but I want to make sure that we just kind of get through. But the general rules of thumb, and Don is a batting out of turn master. Whoever should have batted is out, and whoever is the next batter comes up to bat. The rule is very extensive, has all sorts of different things. Don, would you like to add anything to batting out of turn?
But on the batting out of turn, if you catch it right away, then it's pretty easy for everybody to understand. So as DJ's example shows here, let's just say we're starting the game, okay? And Abel's supposed to be the first batter. Baker comes up and bats, okay? Baker gets on base. Before another pitch is thrown, the defensive coach comes out and says they batted out of turn. The correct ruling is Abel is declared out and Baker comes back up to bat again. Okay? Baker would be your batter. Now let's say that same scenario and Baker batted and reaches first base and there is a pitch thrown and then it's noticed. Based on what DJ said, who's the correct batter now? It would be Charles because he followed Baker. Okay, so if Abel was up there and the coach comes out and says, hey, 1 pitch has been thrown. Hey, they batted out of order. You have now just helped the offense because Abel's up there and he's not supposed to be, and you waited for a pitch. That offense can say, oh, you're right. And now you're going to bring Charlie up there and he's going to assume that count. of 1-0 or 0-1, and Charlie's your legal batter now. Still nobody out because you let a pitch go. Does that make sense? The proper batter follows the batter that was illegal.
Yes.
Yes.
With that count. So if it's, so the Don's first example, if it's the start of the game and Baker, batter number 2, is up to bat, whatever reason, we're at a 2-ball, 1-strike count. And the offensive manager goes, I'm batting out of turn. I'm batting out of turn. We send Abel up to bat with a 2-1 count. Because Abel's still the proper batter. Only when a pitch or play or attempted play on a illegal batter is what seals the deal. So that's what what Don's saying is Baker bats illegally, he gets to first base. We throw a pitch to Charlie, everything is now legal at that point because we have a new pitch. You have until that pitch is thrown.
Correct.
Yeah, Abel just loses in that bat. And that would not fulfill mandatory play for the purposes of defining an at-bat. For the record, that does not fulfill at-bat.
Now let's say throw a little bit of a little more maybe a little more confusing, but let's say David's supposed to be the batter and Hank, for whatever reason, maybe the coach made these changes last inning and the kids didn't realize who they're going into bat for. Hank comes up and bat. He's 3 batters past David. Hank completes his at bat. Okay. And he's out. Who would be the next batter? Is it Edward that follows David, or is it Ida that follows Hank?
Only if they throw a pitch. If they throw a pitch, then it's Ida. If they don't throw a pitch,
What do you got on that, DJ? David was supposed to bat. Hank batted. Hank was out. So who was the?
We're appealing that there's batting out of order there. So the proper batter would be out, which would be David, and then Edward would come up to bat. And then to your point, if a pitch was thrown, everything just became legal. We skipped David, Edward, and Greg, and Ida is now your proper batter.
Yes. Yes. There would still be the out because they were out. He was out.
Yeah.
And that can happen more. That's going to happen more likely when subs come in and the players don't realize who they came in to sub for, and the coach maybe isn't clear, or the coach accidentally told them wrong. You know, you came in for the 4 spot when really he came in for the 7 spot. It can get confusing, but you just got to slow down and think about it. If you're on offense and you notice it, get it corrected before he becomes an official batter. If you're on defense and you notice it, keep your mouth shut until he reaches base or is retired, and then mention it.
Yep, absolutely.
I have a weird question.
Go ahead with a question.
What if they skip 2 batters? Is it 2 outs or just 1?
No, you're not going to penalize anything extra. It's all about getting the proper batter out, and then you resume play with the next batter in the lineup. So you could skip 7 batters. You're not going to have 7 outs. It's the proper batter would be out, and then you resume play with the next batter after the proper batter.
Once an improper batter is legalized, then the order goes, then the next batter up would be the one that follows.
Yeah. Once the
wrong batter that came up and batted, and he's legalized, which means there's been a pitch thrown after his at bat, the next batter after him, who should be up there? Don't go back and say number 4, the 3 batter should have batted, but number 4 batted. Now I'm going to put number 3 in. Number 5 would be your proper batter.
It's because it was appealed before. Yeah, before the next pitch. If there was a pitch to Ida, then Hank's out and we're playing baseball or softball.
If I'm the defensive coach and Hank was out, but he batted for David, I'm not saying a word. I'm waiting to see who the offense brings up there next. Hoping they bring up Edward or Gray.
Yeah.
That's what this is for, to give you guys a little more insight. And it can be confusing, and it is confusing, and you just need to go home at some point and get in the rule book or online and just look through the different scenarios. I mean, this gets you thinking about different things.
There is nothing wrong if you're on a game and you're umpiring this game or coaching this game and you encounter batting out of turn, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with calling time as a group and approaching the umpire respectfully. Or if you're umpiring a game and getting into the rule book and make sure you get it right. Nobody's going to fault you anything any differently.
This is one of the things scorekeepers get wrong all the time because they want to point it out.
Yeah, nobody's to bring, yeah.
That's the wrong batter. As an umpire,
Yeah, scorekeepers are not to bring this to anybody's attention.
yes.
Is there anything in the rules about kind of person play? So say Hank comes up to bat, he's batting out where there's 2 men on base, he knocks in 2 runs, and then we catch it after he's done. Do those 2 batters go back on base?
Do you catch it before the next pitch?
Before the next pitch.
Yeah.
Okay.
He could be
So
out.
he doesn't get to keep those 2.
No. Yeah. You have to nullify the action. Yep. So if the question was if 2 runs were to score on this, do the runs get to count? And the rule book says that you have to nullify any action. And so nullifying the action would be sending those runners back to the base at the start or at the pitch, at the time of pitch. And then the proper batter would be declared out and the next batter up.
But let's say a batter went from first to third on a couple pass balls, and then he gets a base hit, and then it's called before the next pitch. The batter would be out, but that kid would stay at third. You wouldn't back him up.
Yep.
Yes.
Just do better. Yeah, no, there's no penalty for multiple offenses of batting out of turn in a game. It's just more confusion and more learning for everybody involved, essentially. But yeah, there's no official penalty or anything like that.
As an offensive coach, once you realize you batted out of order, and whatever kid it was that just batted, whether that shouldn't have, whoever follows him in the batting order is who you want to put up there next. Okay? On defense, catch it before the next pitch. Defense, don't catch it before the next pitch, and you realize they got the wrong batter up there again, keep your mouth shut until that batter completes his at bat.
Questions? Yeah. All right. Rule 7 is the runner. So our rule book is like broken down into categories. Rule 6 is about the batter, 7 is about the runner, 8's about the pitcher, 9's about the umpire. So like you can, if you're looking for a specific scenario, that's how you can kind of go find those things. But rule 704 and 705 talk about our base awards. We have 4, 3, 2, and 1 base awards. There is no like 1+1. Maybe you've heard that growing up or whatever the case may be when you were playing youth baseball or whatever. He gets, the 1+1 rule or anything like that. No, there's an infraction, and then we award a certain amount of bases depending on what that infraction is and when the infraction occurred. So just kind of keep that stuff in mind. We're not going to get into them because there's like 14 or 15 of them. But whether it's ranging from a home run is technically a 4 base award. That's what a home run is. It's a base award. To throwing detached equipment to try and stop, you throw your glove at a fly ball, that's a 3 base award. So just there are all sorts of different stuff in there, and that's covered in rule 704. A quick note, if you overrun first base, if the batter runner overruns first base, simply turning towards second base does not mean that we can everybody run to tag them. There has to be a bona fide attempt, a clear-cut attempt to advance towards second base. Simply turning does not constitute attempt. So yeah, we always teach our kids, you run down first base, you turn to the right, turn to the right. Turning to the left doesn't mean anything. It's that turn to the left and that, am I going to fake to second or whatever the case may be, that could constitute an attempt. Obviously, the best thing to do is to teach your kids to go to the right.
So that attempt is a judgment call by the umpire.
Yep, absolutely.
Turns to the left, the umpire has to make a judgment. It's different depending on who the umpire is, what the umpire sees, what his position was, you know, where he's at on the field, what else he may be kind of taking into account. So, like TJ said, that the act of just turning does not necessarily mean it's an attempt, but turning towards second brings umpire judgment into it.
Yep, turn them to the right. 710 appeals, so that's tag ups, or as the rule book calls them, retouches, and missed bases. For an appeal in Little League, the ball has to be live. So if the ball's killed for whatever reason, the ball needs to be put in play. It has to happen, kind of like batting out a turn. It has to happen before the next play or attempted play. So if you're appealing that somebody left third base before the ball was caught by the outfielder, you have to do it before the next pitch or a next pickoff attempt or whatever the case may be. It has to happen. And the defense still has to be on the field. Now the rule does clarify that you can appeal for like a fourth out, essentially, to take a run off the board. But before that appeal happens, there has to be at least one member of the defense still on the field. And the field for this reason is described as within the fair foul line. So if your center fielder is the last one off the field and you're like, oh, I want to do a fourth out appeal, the center fielder can't be crossing the fair foul line. Appeals can get weedy too, but those are the keys. Needs to be before the next play or attempted play, and it needs to be an unmistakable appeal, whether it's you're verbally telling the umpire or whatever the case may be. I would always just tell you to make sure it's verbal and then make sure the ball is live. We had this happen in a district tournament, semifinal game like 2 years ago, where we had an appeal play at the plate and the pitcher illegal pitched. That is a play or an attempted play, so that nullified, and they were going to get an out. We as the umpire crew had an out on the field. The pitcher messed up their delivery. We called an illegal pitch, and after that point, they can't appeal anymore because that's a play or an attempted play. An illegal pitch is part of that parameter. So they lost that appeal and eventually lost the game, I think, because of that. 713 for baseball, runners leaving early. The runners leaving early, you've seen the red flags get thrown around, time, sending runners back, whatever the case may be. So this is for majors, baseball, and below, because we do not lead off in majors, baseball, and below. The runners cannot leave until the ball reaches the batter. That's just your judgment. A lot of people say when the catcher catches it, when it crosses the plate. Our rule just simply says when it reaches the batter. Umpire judgment, really, but that's kind of what our rule says. If there are 3 runners on and 1 runner leaves early, it affects all runners. Okay. Basically, the runner needs to be returned as far back as the play will allow them. So if there's a runner on first base, that runner leaves early, and the batter hits a single, and that runner advances to third, they have to go back to second, because they can't go back to first because the batter got on base. Okay. If the runner leaves early on first base, it's pass ball. They get safe at second. They have to go back to first base because the batter's not forcing them. If the runner gets thrown out, the out stands and play proceeds. There's no reference to leaving early because they didn't clearly gain enough advantage by leaving early. We're not going to penalize the defense for retiring them. So again, this is all based on the umpire's judgment of a hit if the ball's put in play. So if you were to have runners on first and second and the batter hit a double and the umpire judged, okay, this was going to be a double, runners on first and second, the runner on second has to go home, so that run will score. And even if that runner on first went around and scored, got to go back to third because that's as far back as the play would allow him because the batter ended up on second. So everybody kind of following that a little bit. Okay, so any runner leaving affects all runners, and you go back as far as the play allows you to go back or to return, essentially. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
If he's out at first.
Yeah, if the batter, if the question was if there was a fielder's choice, and does the runner have to go back to first if the batter's out? And the answer would be yes.
A couple things, DJ. I like to give coaching tips for the guys that come to this.
Sure.
Take it for what it's worth.
You'll take the mic because you'll have softball 7:13.
But when you go back to base awards, I talked about overrunning and turning towards seconds, umpire judgment. A player could turn to the right and still make an attempt. Let's say it's an overthrow and he turns to the right and then he or she would take 1 or 2 steps like they're going to go towards second, then an umpire is probably going to judge that as an attempt. So I don't want to mislead you that if you turn to the right, that there couldn't be an attempt. There could still be an attempt either way you turn. But if he just turns to the right 1 or 2 steps and goes back to the base, that's pretty much your safest position on that. Everybody gets confused on the ball must be live. If there's not been a timeout called for anything, then the ball's still live. Okay, on an appeal play is what I'm talking about. But when an umpire has called time, the ball becomes live. First, the umpire is instructed to wait until that pitcher gets on the pitcher's mound. A lot of times you'll have the coaches, hey, we're going to appeal that, throw it to first base. And you got the kid throwing it to first base, and the umpire's not put the ball back in play. Okay? As a coach, calm down, take a deep breath, tell your player, your pitcher, get on the rubber. When he says play, step off of the rubber. You don't have to step off. That's the best thing to do. Step off of the rubber and tell him what you want him to do with it. Get on the rubber. When he says play, I want you to step off and listen to me. And that's what you tell him to do. So many times we as coaches that we don't practice it. If you practiced it and taught your kids, that would be the best. But we don't practice it, and then we're right in the middle of the situation, and we get all flustered. Our players get flustered. We're not calm. We're hollering at them because we know what happened, and then it becomes a mess up at some point. But remember, if the other team's appealing and you know he's going to appeal to second base and you got a runner on third, it's a live ball. He does it right. DJ puts the ball in play. The pitcher's on the rubber. DJ says play. He steps off. He throws it to second. You can send that kid at third if you want to. Okay? I'm just giving you guys scenarios. He sends that kid from third and the pitcher's backed off and he starts to throw it to second. And he's like, oh crap, he's trying to score, and he turns around and throws it home. He's just lost that appeal back there. He can't go back and get that appeal, okay? And then I'm not hearing him. So, and DJ was talking about base runners leaving early. If it's an infield, let's say bases are loaded and we have a base runner leave early and the ball's batted on the infield and all runners are safe, this is where we have the disappearing runner. I know, but because it stayed on the infield and it was a clean play, but the kid on third, let's just say the kid on third left early and it was hit back to the pitcher and the pitcher thought his best play was at the plate. He tried to throw it to the plate, but the kid made it because he or she left early, and everybody else is safe. We're not going to allow the offense an advantage on that. It's what we call a disappearing runner. We're going to call time. We're going to remove the kid that was closest to home. He or she is out, and then all the other runners move up on base. Huh?
When he says out, he means removed. There is no out.
Oh, I'm sorry. We remove him off the base or her off the base, and all other runners move up on base.
Yeah. In umpire world, it's called the poof rule because the runner on third just poof disappears.
Disappears.
Yeah. Good luck, game.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim. Let's go to the next slide.
Oh. Obstruction's the next.
Yeah, there's a question here that we're going to get to here in a minute. We moved to 7-0, we're still on 7-0, continued on the runner. In softball, different than baseball, much easier. If a runner leaves base early, the penalty is it's no pitch and the runner's out. Okay. I mean, they left early. Umpire's going to come up. He's going to say no pitch or dead ball. Don't like to say dead ball because I've never seen a ball really live, but whatever to get the attention. That umpire wants to come up loud, and he or she wants to take steps towards the pitcher. No pitch, no pitch. Runner left early, she's out, and that's all there is to it. Okay. Once the play's killed, even if the pitch is delivered, it's irrelevant. It doesn't count. Okay. The umpire has basically called time when he's called no pitch. In the minors and below, they must wait for the ball to reach the batter before the runners can leave base. In majors, juniors, and seniors in softball, it's when the pitcher releases the ball that the runners can then leave base. Okay. So softball's really easy. That's a softball ruling that I just went over. DJ?
Yep. That was actually one of the biggest arguments. Baseball and softball.
Don't get me wrong. I prefer the looks on people's faces when I have to throw a red flag and really institute a crazy rule that I'm probably the only one to know how to accurately enforce anyway. But it would be a lot easier if it was just out. But
even if you get it wrong, most of the people don't know as well.
oh yeah, absolutely. I had one last year where I texted a friend of mine. I was like, "Did I mess this up?" And he goes, "Yeah, you did." I was like, "Okay." Nobody knew. 7.14, the special pinch runner. So the special pinch runner can only be used if you're playing 9 bat 9. If you're doing continuous batting order, cannot use a special pinch runner. The special pinch runner can only be used once per inning, and you can only be ran for once per game. And the special pinch runner cannot be somebody in the active roster. It has to be somebody that's a substitute. Okay, or active roster, excuse me, the starting lineup has to be somebody who is currently a substitute. If you're utilizing the courtesy runner in play 9 or bat 9 or continuous batting order, it has to be the catcher and pitcher of record. So what that means, the of record, is if there's 2 outs and your catcher that was the catcher the last inning is on base, you can run for them. That's the courtesy runner. It's the player who got the last out is their runner. Okay. The runner who made the last out. Okay. If you're using play 9, bat 9 and courtesy runner, it can be any one of your subs. If it's, but if you're doing continuous batting order, it's the player who made the last out. They're the runner, and it's the pitcher and catcher of record. You can't be like, oh, he's gonna be my pitcher. Oh, he's gonna be my catcher this next inning. Of record means whoever was just the pitcher or catcher. 2 outs, and you can run for him with the person who got the last out. You don't have to, You don't have to. If your pitcher's your fastest kid, don't take them off the base pass. It's one of those, it's a pace of play thing. Typically the catcher is probably a beefier kid, maybe most of the time. Sometimes you never know. And if you want to get them off or have more time to get their gear on or whatever the case may be, there's that provision in the rule for you.
Weather like this, DJ's made me play with it, and it's the best player, the fastest runner. I would still put a pitch runner in. DJ's been known to play like this.
Yes. Yeah, we ran it. That was a loophole issue last year. If your pitcher and catcher are both on base, it's the last two people that were out that they can run for them.
And you have to go in. Which one goes in for the
Whoever's the closest is the most out, if that makes sense. So if you have a runner on third, it's the very last batter that out. The runner on second, it's the second to last person that got out. Correct. Yeah.
And they don't have to actually go back.
No. Yeah. It's all about of record. Yep.
Yeah. When they walk off the field, who was the pitcher and catcher?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Uh-huh. Well, so technically the rule says who made the last out. Yeah. So the question is does the bat it out or is it tag out? And the rule technically does say whoever made the last out. I think generally we assume batted out, but I can double check. But the rule does say whoever made the last out, so I can look into the specifics of that one.
The way I read the rule, I didn't hear. I'm sorry, I was spoke up earlier. Let's say I got my pitcher on first. I got a player on first and second, and it's my pitcher on first and a real fast runner on second, and she would try to go to third and get thrown out. Because she's my fastest runner, I'm thinking at that point in time, because she just got thrown out, I can now allow her to go run at first.
Mm-hmm. Strategy. There's strategy everywhere.
I don't think it's the batter. That's the rule. I think DJ's right. It's
Whoever made the last out, yeah. Does any of our leagues utilize a double first base? I don't believe so, but softballers probably do.
We do. Anderson does.
Okay, so we'll just cover it. The defense only uses the white portion. Anytime a play is made, anytime a play is made at first base, the batter must use the colored portion, typically orange or green. No play. If there is no play at first base, the batter runner can go to either side. They only have to use the colored portion when there's a play being made on them. And when they're on the bases, like rounding first or taking a lead off or whatever and coming back, they can only go back to the white portion. And that's covered in Rule 715. Next slide. Obstruction. There are two parts of obstruction. There are the type A or type 1 is anytime there's a play being made on an obstructed runner, the ball is immediately dead and the runner gets the one base they were after one base that beyond they had last legally acquired. The most common place that you'll see this is a like swipe tag or a collision play at any base or something of that nature. Most honestly, you'll see it a lot at home plate where the catcher is kind of coming up the baseline a little bit, doesn't have the ball, and the runner has to deviate their path around that catcher. Okay, and that can happen at any bag. But the runner has to deviate their path. They're essentially being obstructed or hindered trying to get to their next bag. If the fielder does not have the ball, you would have, but a play is being made, like the catcher is about to receive it or whatever, you would have time, and the runner automatically gets home plate because their last legally acquired base was third base. Okay, we do not have an in the act of fielding the throw in our rule book like MLB does. So a lot of times you'll see, and especially I know MLB's point of emphasis this year is obstruction. So we do not have an in the act of fielding the throw. Our rule is very black and white, which I love. You either have the ball and you can't obstruct because you have the ball, or you don't have the ball and you're obstructing. That's it. There is no judgment of what is in the act of receiving the throw. If you have the ball, you can't obstruct. You probably have a tag. If you don't have the ball, you're probably obstructing, and there's going to be a base awarded. Now, to Jack's question earlier, what about the runner like rounding first base? That would be type B obstruction, okay? Because there is not a play being made on the runner when they're rounding. When do we see this? A fly ball to the gap or to the outfield. That batter runner rounds first, the first baseman's just watching all of his teammates do everything, and the batter runner runs into this fielder. There is no play being made there. So the ball remains live. We call this a delayed dead ball. The ball remains live, and then we award penalties, or we award essentially based on what we think will nullify that act of obstruction. It does not mean that this runner is guaranteed second base. It just means that we have to do what we think will make the obstruction as if it not happen. So let's say the runner rounds first base, has to veer around a first baseman, and gets thrown out by a half step at second base with very little information and not seeing it. In that situation, would I call time and award that runner safe at second base for obstruction? Yeah, probably, just based on that. Rounding first, got to go around a fielder who's in my way. I get thrown out by a half step. I'm probably going to award that runner second base. I get thrown out, same situation, but I get thrown out by 3 steps. I could still call the runner out, because in my judgment, he wasn't going to make it to second base anyway. My job is to nullify the obstruction. If I take the obstruction out and this runner is still going to be thrown out, you're still out. Okay, so there's no guarantee. Type A, if there's a play being made on a runner and we have obstruction, immediate dead, and you get the base. Type B, there is no play being made on an obstructed runner. The play is live, and it's up to the umpire as to see what you get. And that's it.
If I'm a coach, how do I know? I think they'll change the purpose on this. That's why I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
How's the teams involved supposed to know? Because on a type A, the umpire's calling time.
Yeah.
On a type B, it's a delayed call, basically.
Yeah. So what?
The umpire's mechanic or vocal. What's the umpire taught to do now? Because I've always been taught to kind of, that's obstruction, but I don't know if they're still teaching that.
Yeah, no. So what you should look for, if you think that, you have a player that might have been obstructed, the appropriate mechanic is, as Don just said, you're just pointing at it. And all I'm saying is that's obstruction.
I'm not ruling on anything at that point.
Don't get scared and stop running. Don't tell your kids, hey, you're safe. Do whatever you want. He said obstruction. That's not a thing. Okay. I'm just letting you know, hey, coach, I saw the obstruction. And then it's up to me what happens after that. Okay. So yeah, the appropriate mechanic is to literally just point and say that's obstruction and let play continue to develop. And then we nullify it.
Clearly not gonna make the third.
Mm-hmm.
You still get that play if you run through the second baseman standing on the
You
base.
mean, is he gonna get second or third?
He's already on second because he touched second and he hits the second baseman on his way trying to get to third, gets knocked down. I mean, the third, he just stops. He stops.
Well,
He slows him down because he's on base.
let's just say the kid rounded second and your shortstop's out being a cutoff and the second baseman is on the third base side of second, 5 feet. The kid comes around and he knocks into him, right?
Yeah.
And he falls down. Let's just say that. If that ball's still against the fence and that kid's knocked down and he gets up and tries to go to third and he's thrown out, just not seeing everything, I'm probably going to give him third. In my judgment, I may give him home, okay? But let's say that ball's coming in, the shortstop's got it 10 feet from the infield and that happened and the kid got up and go to third, I'm not going to give him third.
He could be out, or if he gets knocked up, like around second base or whatever, but has acquired second base, he gets knocked down, shortstop's got the ball and he's trying to get back to second base, I could award him back to second base. I could take him back to second base. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not going to penalize him if he's trying to get back to second base.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
So the opposite of obstruction. So the obstruction is all about the defense obstructing with the offense. The opposite of that would be interference, which would be the next slide. Basically, the offense interfering with the defense. So a couple key things here. Intent doesn't matter in obstruction or interference. It does sometimes. There's very few times where it does, but most of the time, obstruction or interference is an accident. Most of the time it's an accident. The one time there is an example here, and it's just important. A batted ball is never intent. If the offense interferes with a batted ball, it's immediately dead. Intent does not matter. A thrown ball has to have intent. So like if I'm running from first to second base, and the first baseman's trying to pull a quick double play, what would that be? The 3-6-3 double play or whatever the case may be. If I throw the ball and it hits that runner in the back as he's running to second base, it's fine. But if that runner turns and looks and tries to run in front of the throw, then I have intent, then I would have interference. So that's kind of just a nuance of the rule. Interference is basically an offensive member hindering a fielder attempting to make a play, or obstructing or impeding their way of making a play. If you're touched by a batted ball, we've all kind of seen that where the runner like tries to stop or hop over it. If you touch a batted ball before a fielder has a chance to make a play, you would be out for interference. In fair territory, yep. A note, the batter's box is not a safe haven. Okay, so if you interfere with the catcher's ability to make a play at the plate, so a lot of times people say, pass ball, runner on third's coming home. Everybody's trying to cover. Everybody says, stay in the box, stay in the box. If I'm the coach, I'm telling my catcher to throw the ball at the batter every time because it's an out. The batter's box is not a safe haven if you're obstructing the catcher's ability to make a play at the plate. Okay. We have things such as retired teammate interference. So if a runner who just scores were to maybe interfere with a catcher trying to make a play at another base, whatever the case may be, we could have interference there. We have interference with like the willful and deliberate, obvious intent to break up a double play. Obviously, most of the time at second base when they're trying to turn two, but it has to be willful and deliberate. So that's another where it's like, okay, the rule book is telling us we have to have intent if they're trying to break up a double play. Just being kind of in the way, you have to use a little bit of judgment if you're truly trying to say you can't just be going to grab outs. Coach's interference, it's two different types. You can't interfere with the defense trying to make a play. Your coach's box is not a safe haven. So if there's a pop fly above your box, you need to leave. The fielders don't go around you. And then the other part of coach's interference is physically assisting a runner. So that would be a runner not paying attention and maybe a shove in the back. You're at third base and you're like, go, go, go. A high five is not physically, high five on a home run, that's not physically assisting, whatever. We're looking for a physical assist of that runner.
Danny Hurley, an example of physically assisting. You guys saw it, right? You see it, DJ?
What's that? The West Region or whatever?
Championship game. UConn.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Not a big basketball guy. Yeah, that would be that. And then just a final note, we do not have there's a myth. We do not have a must slide rule. Little League does not have a must slide rule. You have to, oh gosh, Don's going to quote me on the verbiage here. He's going to knock me down. Yeah, you have to attempt to avoid contact or slide with a fielder who is waiting to make a tag. So if there is a fielder with a ball waiting to make a tag, you must attempt to avoid contact or slide. But we do not have a must slide rule at all times. You must slide into home plate. You can't slide into first base. Like none of that's like real. You can do whatever you want. You are subject to being called out though if you don't slide or attempt contact with a fielder who has a ball waiting to make a tag. Next slide. The pitcher warm-up pitches, you get 1 minute in between each inning. The inning starts at the third out of the previous inning. So if you've ever had me on your games, hustling in and out, give me the pitcher and catcher to warm up. They get 8 prep pitches or 1 minute. Yes. Jim wants to add one thing about sliding. Oh yeah, no head first slides in Little League Baseball. And below, you can slide head first if you're going back into a bag. So like if you round first base and you're like, oh gosh, they're going to back pick me, I'm going to dive back into first base. You can return to a base head first. In Little League Baseball majors and below, intermediate and up, you can slide head first. So just throwing that out there. So intermediate, juniors and seniors, you can slide head first. Yeah. I would so the question is, if somebody gets caught, trips up and ends up tripping or over themselves or whatever the case may be, and it's just going to be judgment at that point. I would say no, based on the story that you say, slides head first, gets tripped up in the dirt or whatever, and ends up head over heels. I would say that's not a head first slide, but I can't speak for another member, another umpire. I would need to see a deliberate head first slide. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we see it happen all the time. Yeah, no. Let's see. Illegal pitches. This is for baseball. Illegal pitches. The ball is it's delayed dead essentially unless the pitch is delivered. We try and stop it before a pitch is delivered. If the pitch is delivered, the manager can elect the outcome of the play or take the illegal pitch. However, if all runners and the batter advance at least 1 base, so say there's an illegal pitch, the batter hits the ball in the right field, everybody advances 1 base, it's like the illegal pitch never happened. Okay. If the manager does take the option of the illegal pitch, it does count as a ball on the batter and a pitch to the pitch count. Softball, there is not a pitch added to the pitch count.
There's no pitch count.
Yeah. Well, the difference is whereas softball and illegal pitches, we're killing it, as Don said earlier.
Not in softball, we're not killing it. What we're killing in softball is a base runner leaving early.
Oh, that's right.
Base runner leaving early, we're killing it right away.
That's right.
An illegal pitch in softball, we're vocalizing it. That's illegal.
Right.
And then whatever transpires after that is, if the ball's put in play, then the defensive team has the option to elect, I want what happened on the play, or I want the illegal pitch enforced. Okay, so it's different. An illegal pitch in softball is a delayed dead ball. Okay, a lot of times if you say it loud enough, you'll freeze the pitcher if she hasn't released the ball yet, and she'll stop, and that makes it great. But if she's released the ball and you call an illegal pitch, then it's going to be a ball if nothing really happens, regardless where the pitch is. Or if it's put in play, then the defense can take the result of the play or the result of the illegal pitch, which would be a ball, and we would go back and start over.
Just a reminder again, no balks in Little League majors and below. Intermediate and above, there are balks because that's where you can lead off. Pitching visits, you get 1 visit an inning and 2 visits a game. No, that's not right. That's not right. You get 2 visits an inning and 3 visits a game per pitcher. Yeah. So if you go out a 3rd time in the same inning, you have to yank. If you go out the 4th time in the same game on the same pitcher, you have to yank. Minors and below, it's 1 more. So it's 3 and 4. So the 4th visit in an inning, God forbid, 4 innings on the same pitcher in 1 inning, they've got to yank, and 5 in the same game, they've got to yank. And these are not cumulative. So it's, as we've said, they're each pitcher. So this reset, it's not like MLB where you've got your set number of visits per game and you're done. You have this number resets every pitcher. So you could visit me twice, Don twice, however that goes. How did I miss that typo? So sorry about that.
TJ, I think you misspoke.
On,
But maybe I'm confused. I thought the third visit, majors and above, you have to remove them.
I think that's just for big.
no, majors and above, it's the third visit. They're yanked in 1 inning. Yeah. Yeah. And fourth in a game. And then minors and below, it's 4 and 5. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Come up.
majors. A manager or coach may come up
Twice.
one game to visit with the pitcher, but the third time out, he has to be removed in the game. Three times majors and above, minors and below, it's 4. If he comes out second in the same inning, he's got to remove him. Second in the same inning, he's got to be removed. 3 times in a game at majors and above, he's got to be removed.
Okay, so I have it right in the slideshow. Yeah, because the slideshow I have once an inning, twice a game.
That he can stay in, but the third time out, yeah, once an inning, twice in a game, you can visit that pitcher,
Yeah.
majors and above, with no consequence.
Sorry about that.
The third time you come out, he's removed.
So for those of you that are watching, the slideshow is right. I just tried to guess, I guess. I don't know what happened there. My bad. We've been doing it for 2 hours. Yeah, so once an inning, if you come out the second time, you're done. Twice a game, if you come out third time, you're done. If timeout granted at any point to talk to any defensive team member is going to be a visit. A visit is not just to the pitcher. So if you call timeout and that timeout is granted and you leave your dugout to talk to any defensive player, you're being charged a visit. And lastly here, last slide, rule 9, just a game coordinator. So the game coordinator is to protect our youth umpires, essentially. So if you have one umpire on a game, it has to be an adult. And we identify an adult as somebody who's 18 or older. If you have 2 or more umpires on the game, one of those umpires must be an adult. You cannot have 2 16-year-olds, 2 17-year-olds on a game. The exception for this is if that one umpire if you have a one umpire, all best you can do is a 16 or 17-year-old. You have to have a game coordinator at the site. The game coordinator has to be an adult. The game coordinator cannot be a manager or coach of either team. They can only be the game coordinator of one game at a time. So I'll just use Newcastle for this example. You got 2 games going on, upper diamond, or you got a game going on upper lower at the same time. You have 2 16-year-olds on both games. You cannot have one game coordinator oversee both games. You have to have one game coordinator at each game. The game coordinator must be included at the pregame meeting with the coaches. The game coordinator has to be at the game site the entire time. The game coordinator is not there to rule on any part of the game, just to oversee the conduct. The game coordinator does have the power to eject participants from the game. Notice participants, not fans, participants from the game for unsporting behavior, things like that. And they are the only judge for field conditions or weather-related issues. So we take that guesswork out of the hands of the 16-year-olds and it goes onto the game coordinator. So we want baseball games to happen. And a lot of times we have very well-trained or very eager 16, 17-year-old people that are willing to umpire games, which is awesome. However, we still need to step up as local leagues and protect them from potential abuse or anything like that. So that is where the game coordinator, I think game coordinator came into play in like 19 or 21. So it's still kind of relatively new. Yeah. And that's it. Any questions? Sorry, I know rules are just so fun. Question over here. So that would be a local league thing because our rule book technically doesn't acknowledge coach pitch as a division. So
The younger ages, hopefully your league has kind of put in parameters of like when the ball's dead. I mean, I've just not umpired coach's pitch or T-ball since my kids played. I mean, as a district umpire, we just don't get into those games. So usually your local league will have a dead area when the ball comes into a certain area or something, it's dead. Now, if you're talking about when plays live, then if I'm umpiring, I'm going to wait until I know there's not any other runners trying to move or advance before I'm going to grant time. I don't know if that answers your question or if you had something more specific or an example.
I remember when I played, it had to be an infielder on the infield dirt and they could request time and they had to be in possession of the ball. Yeah, I remember doing that when I was very young.
That's always a big debate in the rules meeting. And I would really love it if our local leagues during regular season would play the same rules. It's tournament.
Oh, I was like, well, Jim, what's the rule? Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, like I said, our rule book is really more or less some T-ball stuff in there, more like game administration stuff, run rule type stuff. But it's really like minors, majors, and stuff like that. So I can just tell you what I remember doing when I was a kid. And it had to be an infielder. They had to have the ball and they could request time. And that's when, and then I don't know, do people still do like the halfway line on base paths? If you call time before the runner makes it halfway, they got to go back.
They have to be able to stop whatever play's coming, right? So like if you're getting the ball back to second baseman, there's a guy on first, like you can call time. But if he's past the guy, you can't call time to keep getting second.
Right. I should do a coach pitch game. Oh yeah. What'd you say? Yeah, I would. I'm sure parents would love me on that. That would be great. Parents get worse the younger the kids are. So, just a heads up, if you didn't know, the Little League rule book is available for free in both the Apple App Store and the Android, whatever. What is it? Google Play Store. Sorry. But yeah, the Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and it's literally just called Little League Rule Books. It is fantastic. I use it all the time. Clearly not enough, as you've witnessed tonight.
When we went through it, had to correct a couple things as he was talking. I was able to pull it up real quick, and we were able to look at it. I mean, and you just hit the rule book like DJ's got there.
A beautiful thing. It's free. It's got the baseball rule book, the softball rule book, the Challenger rule book, all built in. And when you download it, it updates every year. So our rules committee gets together in September of every year, and they hash out different rules changes. So if we change the rules, normally you had to wait until the rule books would get printed and then wait until, and sometimes rule books might not be available until like maybe the season starts. Here, you get the significant updates and they're put in there. The app utilizes hyperlinks. So like if it's in association with another rule, you can click it and it will take you to that rule. There's also videos, I think. No, I clicked the wrong thing there. Penalty. Oh boy. Show me a video. Come on, Zach Gump. Don't let me down. So there are embedded videos too that showcase examples or somebody from Little League International explaining the rule to you. A popular video in here is does the tie go to the runner? The answer is no, it does not go to the runner. That goes to the umpire, aka our rule says that the runner must beat the ball to the bag. And if you tie, you did not beat the ball to the bag. So therefore the runner would actually be out if you think there is a tie. You can bookmark things, the search function. You can literally type in I typed in BB core when I was prepping this, and it took me to that rule when I was talking about the bat specs and how so it literally eye black, game coordinator, fake tag, curfew. I was doing I'm on the national instructor team for Little League International, and I was doing an outreach clinic in Chicago last weekend, and curfew got brought up. Open my app, type in the word curfew, and it takes me straight to curfew rules for how late you can play. So it's very, very useful. Any other questions, brain busters? This happened to me one times. Mm-hmm. So you're asking an umpire. So the question was, is if the runner's running to first, the ball gets thrown, and there's an overthrow at first base, can the runner's going to second, can they go to third?
We're specifically talking
To
pitcher division, right?
Yeah, so it's a coach pitch related question. You're asking an umpire. To me, the ball is live no matter what, and you can run. Jim, what do you do in the coach pitch tournament? Jim does not remember.
Local leagues, if local league is going to, local leagues can adopt local league rules, and they're going to, if they don't want to follow traditional baseball, softball rules as printed in the rule book, and they want to make exceptions, then the local league needs to make those exceptions, and in theory, should send it to Little League and say, here's what we're going to play by. But if at least make sure all the managers and coaches and participants in that division know what the rule is.
I will say this about rules. We do look at those kids as all-stars, and so we try and make it more like real baseball, softball. Might actually.
I can tell you 28 years ago, if there was an overthrow, I could go one base. I could go a maximum of one base past an overthrow. What's that? Yeah.
You're right. It's supposed to be
Okay. And earlier I was talking about awards. I guess that's a super popular award that people should be aware of. If a ball is thrown out of play by a defense, we talk about the 1+1 and all that type of stuff. If a ball is thrown out of play, the runners get 2 bases from the time of the throw. Okay. There are some exceptions to that. So like if it's the first play by an infielder, it's 2 bases from the time of the pitch. So let's say batter runner hits a ball to the shortstop and the shortstop throws it to the concession stand. Okay. It's 2 bases from the time of the pitch. So that batter runner gets second base. Okay. Let's say it's the outfielder throwing the ball and they throw it to the concession stand. It's 2 bases from the time of the throw if it's the outfielder. So just kind of throwing that out there. So if it's the batter runner and the batter runner has rounded first and the outfielder launches it, batter runner is rounded first, they go to third because they get second and third. If the batter runner has rounded first somehow and the shortstop airmails it, it's still 2 bases from the time of the pitch because it was the first throw by the infielder. Okay. So that's one of those things where it's important to kind of know the difference. First throw by an infielder, time of pitch. First throw by an outfielder, time of throw. There's tons of little nuances in the rule book. Anything else? Jim, is there anything else?
I want to talk about All right, sorry everybody. Everybody in person that gave me an email, I will be sending the handouts that should have been on the screen, but we couldn't figure it out. As well as this was also recorded, and so we'll be sending the recording to you as well. Really the same for everybody online. but I don't think very many people put their email address in. So I'm going to send it out to all the people that were on the invite group. That's the league presidents, staff, and a group of people that are friends of District 6 and just are involved in everything. If you are online and are not sent the handouts and the recording, please get with your league president and have them send them to you, because they will have them. And that's really all I have. Anything else from anybody online in the audience or anything? All right. Well, thank you very much for attending this evening. I hope this enhances and makes it easier for your leagues during the season. And if you have any questions, you can just email them to either me or to your presidents and have them send them to me, and we'll make sure we get them answered. So thank you very much for attending. Night.